Yes, welcome to Star Trek Trek, our ongoing journey through the annals of Star Trek, and we have arrived at the end of Star Trek Enterprise. We are here having just watched both Demons and Terra Prime together as one whole part. This was a draft pick from none other than Stars und Garters. Please, Stars, illuminate us as to why you picked these episodes. And then, I'm so sorry how much we're going to talk about Mayweather in this review.
Part of the reason I had legitimately forgotten just how much Mayweather there is. But like, in real terms, it's because this is, to me, the actual season, show finale for Enterprise. Yes, these are the voyages, but it doesn't really count. Like, if you're talking about the actual story of Enterprise, it all actually comes to a head here, because they make gestures at the coalition of planets in these are the voyages, but you never see the speech. Yeah. They talk about all these things that are so important, but like it's actually all contained within here. You even get like a full-on callback to Archer's dad, which like kind of fell like to the wayside a little bit as Enterprise went on, but they're calling all the way back to that binding glue of Broken Bow. And I just really appreciate the way that everyone kind of, well, apart from Mayweather and Hoshi, although Hoshi actually got a lot more to do in this episode than she did in almost anything else.
She had a mild badass moment.
Yeah. You get to see how far everyone has come along. Like, Archer has grown up massively as a captain. Tucker and T'Pol's relationship is, like, at their softest and most lovely here, even with a little bit of friction. Phlox is on fine form. Even Reed gets some really, really good stuff to do here.
Oh, gosh. I've just had a terrible idea. We need to watch... Right, so when we do Pegasus... Then we stop Pegasus at the moment.
No.
Then watch These Are the Voyages, and then we can watch Pegasus 4.
I can't imagine a worse way to watch this episode. Yeah, like to me, having watched it recently, having now watched it with you guys, I don't think this is maybe the best of season 4. But I feel like if this is like on like the mid or low point of like season 4, well, there's Bound as well, but that's this is like really good Trek. I would have loved to have seen this as a spring point for season 5, especially since we know what that would have looked like. So like the promise of what it represents means a lot to me. But yeah, I think it's a really good two-parter. I think it's not quite as good as I remember, but I still think it's pretty good.
I remember during the draft, you mentioned two things. You mentioned the speech at the end, Archer's speech at the end, and then that T'Pol and Trip, their child, that's something that they might want, I think is how you phrased it. And it's true, those are probably, I mean, they may or may not be our bread, but those are probably going to be the things that, maybe Peter Weller's performance, but those two things probably are going to be what you remember. And I always say, because I'm not a huge fan of these episodes, I'll try not to be too rough, but I will say, I've always said, if you're going to do a high point or a big emotional point, do it at the end. Do it. If you're going to do something great, do it at the end. That's what people remember as they go on. So I think the pacing was maybe one of the things I didn't have a big problem with, especially the Terra Prime. So I thought they did a good job tying a nice bow on the end of it. And like you say, the fact that the finale is pretty bad. Yeah. If they wanted to put a claim in as the finale, I wouldn't be opposed.
Yeah, I definitely think the Demons is the lesser of the two parts, which I don't know, it kind of depends on your mileage, but I often find that the second part of a two-parter is often where it starts to fall apart. Like, Best of Both Worlds Part 2, for example, is not nearly as good as Part 1, because the build-up is nearly not as good as the actual climax. Although I think that Best of Both Worlds sticks to landing pretty decently. But this is one of those instances where, Part 2 is infinitely superior. Part 1 spends so much time on Mayweather. Which is not what I remember from the episode. Like you said, you remember the big emotional high points, but there's.
Do you know? Sometimes I feel sorry for Anthony Montgomery, because I'm like, right, a lot of the time he's smiling at the con, he doesn't get a lot to do. But then I remember and watching episodes like this, I'm like, yeah, maybe there's a reason they don't, because he's. I'm sorry, mate, but he's not very good. He is so monotone in this episode. Like, someone turns to him for an emotional reaction, and he's just like, "Okay." And literally, it was an emotional moment. It was supposed to be. I think it was T'Pol at the end, and like saying
a kid is dying.
A kid is dying.
My kid,
and he's
is dying.
And he's nothing. And I laughed. And I felt bad because this is supposed to be a real moment. Sorry, Frank, you go on.
No, I mean, it's like he busts in. She's like, "My child that you didn't know I had is dying," and he's like, "I just got laid." And the girl that I had sex with is potentially a traitor and in jail. So, I mean, we're both kind of whoops.
But she's got a nice turquoise bra.
So
it was very turquoise.
He's a very athletic guy. Anthony Montgomery is. I watched what season? Season 2, episode The Breach recently. He's like heroic in that one. He beams down with Trip and Reed. He basically takes command of the away team because he has experience with what they're going to do. They do some rock climbing. He ends up saving their lives, and it's just like a good showcase of what he should be doing. And this is like the exact opposite of that, where the storyline is predicated on him emoting, which he's not particularly great at in Enterprise. He looks like an idiot when he lets the snake, into the garden. And then at the end, where it's like, yeah, you betrayed me and you almost got us all killed, but I'll give you another chance because we can all grow and be friends. And I'm like, bro, at least give it like a few days before you hop back on that particular horse. So it was just not good for him.
Yeah, I think it was well intentioned because I think that they were like very aware of the fact that they had given Travis three seasons of nothing, and they were like, well, we got to do something with it. And according to the audio commentary, Gannett, the Starfleet intelligence agent, started out as a man with the same name associated to Hoshi rather than Travis. And I think they must have gone, okay, well, we've clearly done enough with Hoshi. Let's do something with Travis, ignoring the fact that Linda Park is a better actor than Anthony Montgomery. And I feel like this would have been way more impactful with Hoshi because she would have been able to fucking emote. Apparently, they also weren't sure if she was really with Starfleet Intelligence until they were writing the very end of the episode, which is hilarious.
Oh, really? So that was literally Terra Prime. Right, what do we do with this girl we got in the brig? Christ. Very stylish brig, by the way. I like how the cage is very artistic and well lit. Very comfortable.
Which, I mean,
the lighting was good.
Yeah.
At least Hoshi did get to emote when she was in charge on the bridge. I think Frankie called that out. I thought you were going to say Gannett was going to be a man, and he and Anthony Montgomery were going to be in a relationship. Well, at least that has some kind of something unique for that time. Yeah.
We do not have the technology of our time to do this. Go on.
I think we were watching Mud's Women. I always remember, Idle, some quote you said, they did their best with what morality they had back then.
I said that? That's good
what
for
I
me.
always think of when we review the older stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
What was it you were saying, Frank? Was it about Hoshi?
Well, she did, as I pointed out, you called back, she had some brilliant moments of acting and getting to emote. And it was one of those where it's, hey, we're at the end of our journey. Let's give everybody some sort of shine or some sort of moment. Boom, here's her. Mayweather lost cause, just go screw this lady and then fly and stare into the camera. That's all we needed to do. Thanks, man. Take off your shirt. You're good. But yeah, it was, we'll get into it later, but as the two episodes together, and yes, I drafted These Are the Voyages, so I am steadfast in that being the superior ending to Enterprise. But these two together are a fine ending and bow on the series if These Are the Voyages didn't exist. I would have written it ever so slightly differently with an ever so slightly different ending, but gotten there all the same. But everybody basically worked. My big complaint, which we'll get into later, is Peter Weller. But I don't have big complaints otherwise. It's just little things that are like nitpicky, but and really, okay, did they know at this point like obviously they had to rush the ending, but did they know game over? Like,
I think they did at this.
We're
point.
gone. We're not coming back.
Yeah, I think about halfway through season 4 or something like that, they got the word down saying like, yeah, okay, this is done.
Yeah.
Can we talk about Paxton a
Which must
little
not have
bit,
been a nice feeling.
as well? I wasn't as impressed with Peter Weller in this episode. These episodes, he was very one note. And I mentioned also halfway through the episode, because I know we'd both recently watched The Circle. He was giving me very Jaro Esso energy, Minister Jaro. That kind of very monotone, just kind of bored. It's not until like the second episode he kind of emotes a little bit more, and I don't know if that's typical Peter Weller. The only other thing I've seen him in really is obviously RoboCop and Star Trek Into Darkness. So I'm not a big patron of his work.
I mean, in Buckaroo Banzai, he plays a very different kind of character who's a bit more of an eccentric scientist. And he plays that plot pretty well with like a little bit of like saccharine, like sentimentality. So it's not like he's a limited range actor. I think it's more just a case of like they envisaged Paxton as being a fairly like, yes, we could make him a flamboyant, charismatic character, but a lot of the time these people aren't. They're ugly people who their entire mechanism is by like fostering hatred. And it's like I don't. It's one of those things where it's like I think it's either you love it or you don't. I think it works perfectly fine for the episode. It's a case of like, yeah, he plays it as like he's in control and a bit almost monotone. But like that's because he is for the majority of the episode in control. So I don't feel like it's jarring, as it were. So apparently his appearance here was pretty much single-handedly the work of Manny Koto. Right. And Weller was neither a sci-fi fan or a fan of Star Trek. And basically Manny Koto, I believe, had some kind of prior relationship with him. Was like, come on, get on Star Trek. And Weller had to apparently really work hard to try and get into the mentality of Paxton. And I thought this little chunk I grabbed out of Memory Alpha was interesting. He's a misunderstood moralist, Weller commented. You can make your own qualitative assessments, but I never look at anybody as a villain. Despite this, Weller also recognized that Paxton is a racist, mentally substituting this ideological element within himself in order to play the role. I made a substitution. There are things I want shaped up. I don't like people coming into this club in tank tops. It's inelegant. I don't want them here. So that's an easy substitution right there. Everyone has their parameters of what's acceptable. And I feel like if you kind of look at it from that perspective, it makes a bit more sense. And that like he doesn't like there's obviously a degree of hatred there, but it's also a case of he views it as what's like necessary. And he almost doesn't get why people don't get it, almost. I feel like is almost the vibe. I don't know, maybe I'm misreading that. But
I mean, with historical hindsight and things that are going on now that we don't necessarily need to talk about, his views are very written with a kind of foresight that are uncomfortable a little bit. But go on.
If you want to talk about it, go for it, because that is the purpose of a lot of sci-fi and of Star Trek is to draw the parallel. So, I mean...
Yeah.
There's a lot of people like that currently around the world that have very racist views and are stuck in their mentality. And
never has this episode ever been so salient than right now.
Yeah,
this is like,
exactly. And you've got a cult leader that is espousing points. I find that the dialogue is very heavy-handed. It is very not heavy-handed, not the phrase I want to use. It's very on the nose and it's very like, I stand for free. And the thing about the certain people around these days is they're hiding behind some sort of morality, or they're going, it's for whatever reason, this is best for the economy or whatever, and then, fucking people over in private, or much more public these days, but he is very kind of just coming out and saying, no, one Earth, fuck you.
I mean, you say that as if that's not what these people do.
I know. I'm trying to explain it.
You actually listen to the content
of
their speeches and what they say and what they believe, what they espouse anyway. And it's like, it's very clear that they actually believe this stuff. Like when he was talking about people on humans on Earth being made into second-class citizens.
Yeah.
Like, is that on the nose, or is it just very sharply observed that that's what people seem to actually believe? This was 20 years ago, and yet
you don't have to scroll far on Facebook if you're on it to find someone saying that, like, yeah, white men are strangers in their own country, and it's just like, what are you on about? Like, you're one step away from talking about sovereign citizenship. But yeah, go on.
So it's funny that you mentioned Jaro Essa, played by Frank Langella, who also was kind of talked into the role. He wanted to do Star Trek for his kids, he said, but he asked that he not be credited because he was not happy with that episode. Yeah. So I Peter Weller didn't go that far, but I would agree. The monotone doesn't really work for me. He's supposed to be essentially kind of a cult leader, and they do mention that, well, actually his dad gifted him everything. So if you want to just go like he's a spoiled rich kid with racist views, as a Nepo kid, like you can kind of excuse him on it. He doesn't need to be charismatic. But if you're looking at it from he's rallying Terra Prime behind him, he's growing the fostering the hatred. He's got to have more charisma than that.
Yeah,
I think of Dukat and Mark Limo in that season 7 episode Covenant, where like he's just dripping with a little bit saccharine, but you can absolutely see people throwing in behind him. I might make a tweak where instead of him being the leader, he was maybe the first in command, kind of like Maxwell Burke in Equinox. Where the leader is more charismatic. And then, Weller would step up, kill him, take command. Make him a little more sinister. And then it doesn't really matter how charismatic he is or not. And you get to see that, like, he is actually a threat because he has killed and he will do again. So just some thoughts.
I think that could actually work, especially because, like, you guys picked up on it. I was kind of curious how, like, fresh it would be in your mind. But Paxton is obviously brought up as a follower of Colonel Philip Green, an atomic horror era despot who featured in Savage Curtain. Apparently, Manny Coto very much wanted to get Green on the show. But due to various story changes, including Brent Spiner signing on to play Eric Soong, the plan was altered to make Paxton work instead. So I think it could have been very interesting if you had Green as that figurehead who has that charisma, because they have an actor playing him here. And you can see that he very much has that brown shirt energy going on. And like if you had him, like maybe he has the Rigelian therapy stuff and he gets killed because he's not ideologically pure, and he's the one who gets the hypocritical thing, and then Paxton takes over. I could see that being a very nice way to meld the two together. That'd be an interesting way to fix that, I think.
You could definitely sacrifice a Mayweather storyline for that. Sorry, Frank. Go on.
No, I was going to say the only problem I had with the, I guess, the casting of Peter Weller in this case, because of the way that the character is written, and you take the character, and this is like the Back to the Future meme where Marty goes, "Hey, I've seen this one before. This is a classic." When, hey, here's a guy who's basically a terrorist leader with fucked up views, that's a Nepo baby because he was born and his daddy gave him everything. I'm like, wait a minute, I've seen this before. But the character on paper works, because if you're going to have Star Trek and you're going to have a show about Star Trek in the beginning of the formation of everything, you have to have this conversation. You have to explore the storyline, because it would have happened. You don't get to Utopia without the bloodshed, you don't make the omelet without the broken eggs. So you had to cross this line, and if we're at the end of the show, you might as well have these heavy episodes. So this character, I think, was written pretty well. Could have had a few tweaks, like you said. But Peter Weller, if you've ever seen on YouTube or had the privilege of seeing him at like a convention or something, he is Dr. Peter Weller, he is so extraordinary to hear talk, because he will talk for just hours. He's like Kevin Smith. You ask one question and he's gone. He is really big into actual physical acting. He did a lot of mime work and mime study when he was coming up in acting, and he put that all in RoboCop because he felt it was more mime with his body movements
Yeah.
and the way he walked around in the suit. And the only expression he had was this part of his face, and that's all you could see. So he's such a physical actor that having him stand there and just emote against a wall, looking out a window in a really nice looking chair, and then hiding under a desk, it's like, well, that's kind of a waste of the actor's abilities, although he's going to do fine. But it's like, I expect to see him in so much more. But they did go out of their way to spend all of the budget on wardrobe, because the man wore a different 3-piece suit every single time you saw him.
He's very well dressed. No, you're right, actually, because we did notice him like using his hands a lot for gesticulation, and it's like, I understand why they went with the set design they did. It's meant to be like a lunar colony. You're not going to have like a massive like space, but I really feel like they maybe could have opened up the set a bit more so that it wasn't quite as crap, just to facilitate like a more physical acting style, if that's who you've cast.
Yeah,
Like, I feel like that's a conversation they should have had, really.
Yeah, I think like because most of the time Paxton appears from around a doorway, makes a speech, and walks away. Like there's not a lot that he does after that, really.
He only moves between like 2 sets, really. Yeah,
he's got
He
3
really
rooms.
does.
So he's like probably took him like 5 hours of work, and he was done.
That's why I think if they would have had him kill at the beginning to rise up in the rank, that's something I think that's a little more in his wheelhouse. Or they could have even done, because they blew out the window at the end, they could have done either maybe like a spacewalk or something where you're gasping for breath, where you can really go for it, go for something big. So
This almost should have been like a season-long storyline. Like this should have been, if we'd have got more seasons, if there'd have been more time, and if it had been, Enterprise had been an era where things were a bit more serialized in maybe in a Strange New Worlds kind of way, you know, we could have had a series of like, you know, things start, because it's not the first time we've seen xenophobia in Enterprise. There was another episode where I think, what is it, Trip and Reed go
I
down.
think it's Home, like the season 4 opener.
That's right,
I think.
So it's you know, making a bit more of an undercurrent, and then leading and, you know, teasing Paxton and bringing up to this may have had a bit more of an impact, perhaps.
No, I definitely think they would had that in mind, because another memory alpha pull. Elizabeth was intended to live or die based on whether or not a 5th season of Star Trek Enterprise was given go ahead or not. While the episode Terra Prime was in development, Mary Koto had the idea that if another season was indeed improved, the baby would live, but the season was cancelled, the child would die. They hoped it would live, as they expected to make for a great storyline. So I absolutely expect they would have continued that on and developed more Terra Prime stuff going forward.
this may sound terrible, but the baby dying was the best part of the episode because of what it pulled out of Connor Trenier at the end.
Yeah.
That was obviously the emotional high point. For me, it was an acting high point by a mile. Great acting
Angeline.
from him. So, and it does open the door, at least the discussion to, well, we could try again. So I think they went the right way, whether the show is going to continue or not.
Yeah. Apparently, Trinier's wife had recently told him she was pregnant with their first child, so he was bringing a lot of that to. Yeah, that's why it was going.
Hey, while we're on, I love, because they put one arm in the cast, which may have been the wrong choice, but whatever. The other arm, just the way it was like tapping his chest and his gesture, and I'm like, oh man, this is good stuff.
There's lots of really good physical acting there.
Without going into too much detail, when my son was 6 months old, he was absolutely fine, but I had, worked in an environment where I heard stories of other people's children, same age, in not so great situations, and that was devastating to me then, even though my child was absolutely fine. I had to go home and I need to hug my child right now because I've heard some horrible things. So I can absolutely see how he channeled that, and it's, not great. Very quickly, I just want to talk about, before I hand over to Stars and his memory alpha dump pull of awesomeness.
First,
He's got quite the dumper on him.
Stars, dump on the bridge. Okay, this was written by... The first episode, Demons, was written by Manny Koto. We know Manny Koto. He's been pretty much, a supervising director for Enterprise in those last few seasons. Directed by LeVar Burton, which actually I didn't see coming. I don't think there was anything particularly poignant about the direction of the first part of Demons there. The second episode, and that's a bit more interesting. This was written, funny that the actual second episode was written by a different writer, considering they kind of had the same throughput, but never mind. It's written by Judith and Garfield Reeve-Stevens, so they're very familiar names to the Star Trek crowd, because they did a lot of the books, most notably the Shatnerverse, with William Shatner, so, very critically acclaimed books those are. But they also did The Forge, The Observer Effect, and United. They also wrote it with Andre Bormanis, who did a lot of Voyager episodes, including Riddle's Human Error.
He was kind of their science consultant. Yeah.
He was, yeah.
Yeah.
And interestingly, he also wrote Demon from Voyager, which
Voyager,
was
yeah.
also the third to last episode of Voyager's 4th season, along with this. Weird pull. And that last episode was directed by Marvin V. Rush, who is principal director of photography for a lot of things. But he's also did The Host, Thor, Favorite Son from Voyager, and In a Mirror Darkly Part 2. So yeah, there we go. Your my statutory director and writer segment.
So I'm on the 24, the show 24, their wiki, and they do mention that Manny Coto and Peter Weller worked together on Star Trek Enterprise. It was about a year before they did 24.
Yeah.
So they may have met on Trek and then went on to do some other stuff. But
There was something previous to that, I think, because that was how Manny Coto got him onto Enterprise in the first place. So they clearly had a
like
pre-existing
working together.
dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we would, because the last one we did as a draft pick was Siege of AR-558, where you shouted at music, and I kind of had to do the same here, because like Jay Chataway did a great job.
It was wild.
Because it's like
it went
what is
places.
it that they called this era? Like the Sonic wallpaper era after Ron Jones left. Like so much of the music, like in like the late '90s Trek, is so beyond note, really. But this one apparently, so this was the last one that Jay Chataway did. So I found it really, really cute. It's more than 3/4 of the musicians who performed on this episode score were the same as those for his first Star Trek score for Tin Man.
Interesting. Oh wow, and that's
Tin Man also featuring. Sorry, go ahead.
Featuring Harry Groner, who had also appeared as Tam Elbrin.
Is his name really
and
Harry
the
Groner?
Nakani
I
Well,
knew you'd like that.
I think it's Grainer because it's done
Right,
like
yeah.
Matt Groening.
Yeah, oh, okay.
As also yes, yeah. If you look at Nathan Samuels, you can't unsee Tam Elbrin.
No,
If
when you
just put,
see it,
like,
you
the
see
black
it, yeah.
eyes. Yeah. Apparently, to commemorate his final orchestration for Star Trek, Chataway drew a sketch of the NX-01 illustrated entirely out of musical phrases from this episode's score.
Oh really? Oh wow. I'll have to see if I can
Yeah,
find that.
he created copies of this for all the musicians, producers, and engineers he had worked with over the years, and the sketch turned out to be an extremely popular keepsake.
Wow.
And
Naturally, I
apparently,
can't find
this is for of course not. According to Chataway, interestingly enough, in the show, some people did not want to play Archer's final speech with music, nor the last big scene with Trip, T'Pol, and the baby. But I said, I hear the music already in my head. I know what it's going to sound like. That indicates to me that the music belongs there, that it's uniquely inspired by that scene. Chataway ultimately won that fight, and some of the music cues he ended up writing for this installment were entitled "Trip Fights Back," which I'm sure is like the bit when he's like getting out of the
Oh yeah, the random
prison
spy
cell.
music. Yeah, just like with the
Which
bass
was
just
great.
going
I love
nuts on it.
that.
So out of
Yeah,
place, but yeah, sure.
I mean, I guess what? I don't mind if music goes nuts for a scene or two. And he also did for Archer's speech and grieving, which you can kind of guess what those were. But good music in this episode. It was just very well done. Like,
Very
well-
bombastic in the first part of it, though. Before in the cold open, where it was just really loud in the mix, and I just thought it was just going to keep
The
getting
mix
louder
was
and
off in
louder.
a couple spots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's
The
not going to be
drama.
Chataway's problem. So
No.
Yeah, that'd be like the sound mixer or whatever it would be. Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, there's also the the first and final time you ever see Hoshi in command of the Enterprise.
She was okay.
She,
That was good.
She makes the most of it. She
She stood up to Samuels. She, but then she did have that moment in desperation of voice, like when Archer phones up and says, like, "We're here, we're taking a call." She's like, "Oh God, thank you. Oh my God."
I mean, valid. Like she's she's an ensign. Like
Yeah.
she's a linguistics expert. I kind of give her a pass on that one.
Yeah. Can we talk about how like, I've only just noticed it because this is the first season 4 episode I watched a long time. Archer's chair, that looks good. We've reviewed it before on when we've done the Roddenberry archive stuff, because they have a separate one for the season 4 bridge as they do season 1. That chair is amazing.
So, what episode is that where, like, there's this virus that infects them and they all get obsessive in different ways?
Oh, it's
And
in
Trip
season
obsesses
3.
over making a more
Yeah.
comfortable
Oh, that's
chair for
right,
Archer.
yeah.
So that must have been when they made the switch. Yeah.
It's a great. It's. I kind of want it. I might go look up and see if
I
there's any.
kind of
any
love that
replicas.
episode because it ends with like, my chair feels way more comfortable. What do you do for it? It's, I lowered it 3 inches or something like that. That episode's great. I should have drafted that one as well. That one's really, really funny. I forget what it's called, but it's really, really good.
One thing that jumped out to me, not for the better, was how monochromatic a lot of it was. When they're in the caves, their jumpsuits and everything around them is all the same color. When we're in Mayweather's quarters, we joked that he has zero personality. Everything was all like shades of gray or brown or anything.
Shades of gray.
The one thing that did jump out positively at the end then was to Paul's quarters. The lighting there reminded me kind of Spock in the movies in his quarters, with the sort of ornamental Vulcan fabrics and the reddish color. So I did like that, but for most of it, it was very monochromatic, I thought.
I mean, that's kind of a bit of a problem with Enterprise in general. Is if you didn't have the blue of their uniforms, it's a very grey-looking starship, isn't it?
Can we also talk
Lots
about
of gunmetal, lots of black.
Talk about that jumpsuit they were wearing, the one with the vest.
The vest.
Yeah.
Yeah, the tactical
Dude, it was
sports
like-
vest, whoever the fuck it was.
It was like velvet. It was great.
Just all the different shades of white and dull green just smashed together.
They looked like they were servers at Olive Garden, actually.
Yep.
So
Incredible.
Can I steal a Memory Alpha pull stars from you? Because I generally find this quite interesting.
Go for it.
It's a series I've been thinking about we should probably look at some point for the holodeck. But Gary Graham was Ambassador Saval. Eric, Section 31 actor, Harris actor, Eric Pierpoint was also in these 2 episodes. They both were actors on Alien Nation, which is another kind of popularish sci-fi series. So they were kind of reunited, but kind of not in the same way that we saw.
They're probably on set together, but yeah.
Yeah, well, could have been on that terrible set of the backdrop.
You mean
where
that
Reed
awful
walks
city
past.
backdrop? Yeah.
The
Oh my
graffiti
God,
of
it
a
was
city.
So bad.
Pretty dire. Okay.
And then the 2 times they used the same shot, both episodes, when we're going to meet Harris on unnamed rooftop or whatever.
Yeah.
It's panning the city, but it starts off with a riverboat, like an 1800s riverboat, steamboat parked there, which, like, today they exist as casinos in the South in a couple of cities. I understand that. But then, like, why? No, what is that doing?
So-
Why?
San Francisco.
So
of
the
all places.
reason for riverboat gambling is because there was no jurisdiction on the water back in the day. So you could do illegal things on the water. They couldn't come arrest you. I feel like that must be Section 31's reason. It's like they're on the riverboat, so they can do whatever they want.
The Section 31 headquarters
Yes,
is a riverboat.
that's canon. Section
Beautiful.
31 headquarters in San Francisco is on a fucking riverboat. Brilliant.
Incredible. But the funny thing is, like, they have that awful city backdrop for the first time in Demons, and then when Harris comes back in Terra Prime, they make the smart system of just making the camera go the other way, so it's Reed walking down.
Yes.
In the,
Yeah,
and
so we
it makes
didn't have
a
to see
much
that.
better. Yeah, exactly. It's like, guys, why didn't you just do that in the first place, you idiots?
Okay. Speaking of notable moments, gentlemen, what is your bread of the episode, the most notable moment or scene that stood up to you? And I think this is going to be a race to see who gets the one we're all thinking of. But since it was Star's draft pick, we're going to go with Star's first. So what was your bread?
I really do think that we have to have like a vocal stim of the episode section because Commander Tucker. It's just like fucking John Billingsley, man. Like
See
the
if I can
motherfucker
find
just
that,
cannot
hang on.
stop himself.
Hang on. Let me get it up. Let me get it up because I've got it on the.
He does it more than once because when he's talking about Archer at one point, he goes, "Captain." He just holds the last consonant and he just kind of vibratos the consonant.
It's really not out of character for him. Like, this is optimism, Captain. Like it's very.
Yeah.
Here we go, here we go,
He's
here.
not. He's not a stranger to an odd consonant.
Oh, hang on. I need to send this to you as well. 1 second. Try this.
Yes, that would help.
That would help. Here you go.
The offspring of Commander Tucker and Tucker and
I was certain that it was gonna be like some kind of editing gap for the trailer.
Yeah.
I was like, "There's no way that's the actual." And then nope, that's just Billingsley doing it. He's just killing it. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I think my actual bread, like the bit that like sticks with me, as it always sticks with me, is just gonna be that final bit with Trip and T'Pol in her quarters, like that. Like the holding up the hands with the Idic, like the absolute desolation. Like that scene is just That's what I think of when I think of this episode, and I think you're right. Or even if like this had been, if this show had been renewed for season 5 and it didn't have that death, like this would have been okay. But I think this really sends it over the top into being properly memorable and worthwhile and feeling like it could qualify as a season finale. Because without it, I feel like it would lack punch. It would feel like we triumphed over the racists and nothing was lost. Well, something was lost. And Trinier and Blalock absolutely fucking murder that scene stone dead. I absolutely love it to bits. So that'd be my red.
And they kind of didn't resolve it really, because there's still like a shitload of people who agree with Terra Prime out there. There will probably be more of it, but yeah. Anyway, I digress. Frank, your red.
I mean, well, sorry to cut in.
Sorry.
Well, that would be worse if you don't conquer racism.
No.
You beat it back for a while, and that's all they can do, and that's what they did. So it would have been too do if they're like, yeah, the racists all gave up. No, we beat them. We beat them in this episode. They'll be back. They're always back, and that's kind of the point. Sorry, Frank.
Guess who's coming to dinner?
Da 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 da.
Tell you what, Frank, I'll buy you a moment to think about it. You know what you should do? You should recut the opening of Terra Prime with Paxton giving his speech with the undiscovered country. That'd be.
I could put
That
that.
would've been-
Yeah, I wonder if that would make it better. Okay.
Yeah. Frank, you go.
I will say, I'll take away from that. I did. Oh boy.
Remember, this is your bread. This is not the same as your best.
This is my bread. I will give my bread, which is for me just the best little what would you say, performance or the standout moment.
Yeah.
I will steal it and I will say Mayweather getting laid.
You'll never forget it either. Yeah.
That because nothing ever bad came out of that. I mean, this chick sneaks onto the ship somehow that's in orbit over Earth. Somehow she gets on. He doesn't know. No one knows. She just goes straight to his quarters and does nasty, sinful, immoral things in the eyes of God, in the middle of which he has to help get a secret team down to the moon and then resume said sinful activities that he can lay in bed. And then just in time for them to finish, everyone else has to bust in and be like, yo, man, listen, sorry to rain on your parade. Y'all were being way too loud. That was like disturbing. We heard it 8 bulkheads down. The mess hall heard it. That was just ridiculous.
I heard you crying, Mayweather.
That was great.
At least he emoted.
If that's how Enterprise ends, I'm all for it.
That is ending with a bang rather than a whimper.
Bye. Auto, top that.
No, unfortunately, I kind of knew what going in what it would be. It's just the amount of monologuing and monotone that Peter Weller gives us. It kind of smothers both episodes with how much there is, and so that's always what I remember from these episodes. Bread.
Okay. My bread will be there's some questionable age CG in this episode, but it's fine because you can kind of hand wave away from it because it's TV in 2005 and they do the best with what budget. And they actually put quite a few CG shots in this, but I will go for when Paxton takes his alien source of space mining ship / starship into space. They go all the way to Mars and they land, and it's like the most 1950s shit possible. They got this giant dish that looks like it's just been taken from a local observatory, and you get their tiny little claw that comes out and grabs on the rail. He's like, yes, we're in. You get tiny little yellow sparks. It's like, right, we've grabbed the rail, therefore we've hacked the system. And I'm like, this is the most 90s stuff possible. Like that just stood out to me. I was just like, what? Why? You could have just landed and gone like, right, we're interfacing with the system's done. No, little hand, claw, let's go. Grapplers.
So let me ask you guys, you kind of half answer that, Idle. Does age CG bother you? And I'll say it bothers me because if you do like really good matte backdrops and it ages well, you're like, well, credit to the production team. Look how well they did with that. If something ages badly, I feel like that you do have to kind of subtract points for that.
It does
that
does
bother you
depend
guys,
on
or-
the show, because I think like Babylon 5 has some notoriously like old CG, but then you sort of take it in the context of like, yeah, they made it with 16 Amiga strapped together, and it kind of gives it its charm almost. And they don't improve it or deviate. It's the exact same kind of CG the whole way through the series. But yeah, you are right. Like it can be detrimental if you're taken out of it.
Yeah, with me with CGI, it's a case of like I'm a massive fan of like 2005 era Doctor Who, which was coming out at the exact same time, and some of that CG is fairly questionable in places. But it just like I just kind of suspension of disbelief. Like it's all just a sci-fi thing to me. It's like it does look noticeably worse than model work a lot of the time.
It can be. It gives a
But
kind
it's
of a
also-
jank to it. If you know the era, and if especially with Doctor Who, which is fairly campy anyway, it adds a sort of like a charm to the jank. But I think it's worse more than when things like shows like what I was suggesting, is probably like Andromeda, for example, is probably a good example of where the CG definitely does detract and does look old, and they're trying to play it off a little differently.
I feel like the CG detracts in a good way because you don't want to actually pay attention to the script in it.
But I will say, like, you also have to kind of give up props to the fact that the whole sequence where they're in the shuttle pod flying behind the comet, and you get
That
like
was
the
pretty
cool
good, actually.
impacts, and
That was
like
good.
that's something you could not really have done with models and with like 90s era Trek. I don't think. Like, I can't think of a sequence equivalent to that actually like properly sells you on it, not in terms of the same kind of viscerality. So
Torpedoes? No.
the exact opposite, in fact. So I feel like it's one of those things you kind of it's a tool to be used well or badly, and like it looks bad in kind of places. I kind of wish it could get a bit of a touch up or maybe a redo. I think it would look really good if you just, and it wouldn't be too hard to do because most of them do tend to just be purely CG shots.
Yeah.
But I think especially like the comet stuff, which was arguably the most important effect shot of both episodes, like that looked great, and I thought that it really, really sold it. So for me, it doesn't matter, but like it doesn't detract from the experience. But I can see why it would for some people.
I think part of why the stuff in TNG ages pretty well. I mean, they do a lot of model stuff, but they also avoid shots that would require CG. Like they wouldn't even attempt that shuttle going into the comet because they knew they couldn't do it on the 26 episode budget. But you think of an episode like Evolution, the season 3 opener, where they do show like a comet and like binary suns or whatever. They do stuff outside, but the interactability isn't quite there because they know they wouldn't have the budget to make it look great. So.
I think you do have like episodes like Galaxy's Child, which do show a little bit of that as well, and like the Silicone Avatar as well. Like,
cutting the baby out of
I just think of that meme where it's Riker's face that comes out.
I haven't seen that one.
Have you not seen that one? It's fucking great. Okay.
Overtime mentions you're just too used to CG now to appreciate. In 2005, the CG made it look like Mayweather was emoting.
Shit, that's like the best use case for AI I've ever heard. Like, can we
We've already picked on him.
Can we replace Mayweather with a better character? Okay, let's do
Well, and Kelby's acting was really bad too when they came in to finger him as like, you're the guy. He's like,
When they came
"No,
in to figure
what?
him.
No.
that-
What? No, I'm not. Oh, I was replaced. Oh, you know.
Oh yeah, and the shaky ensign at the end.
I mean, that guy was acting though. That guy was acting his ass off.
Yeah, but it was a very strange scene.
Of those three that we mentioned, he was probably the best. Yeah.
Okay,
I
Whatever
believe
that's
that guy felt really bad about what he did.
speaking about the best.
The best advice I can give you is to just be yourself.
You're the worst thing that ever happened to Zek. You're the worst thing that ever happened to me.
Actually, that's the second best piece of advice.
In fact, you're the worst thing that ever happened to the entire Ferengi Alliance.
No.
Just stop saying that.
Best and worst moments of the episode. Let's start with you, Otto. Let's machete order it. Let's go. Episodes. Sorry, we are doing both. So,
Now, I tell you what, come back to me last.
okay, Frank.
Come back to me last. No.
Oh, it's that airplane money scene. Oh, we forgot to talk about that. That was hilarious.
So for me, it would be any of the knowing that this is effectively a farewell to Enterprise, and we were trying to get little moments of everybody as much as we could, and set the table for the future and the birth of the Federation and the coalition of planets and great things that are going to come. Everything with Mayweather sure felt shoehorned in, even with him piloting the ship. And it's like, look how great of a pilot he is. Wow, what a boomer. You know, like, and then, oh my God, the panel's been forced. Like, you could have cut all that out or replaced him with somebody else. I didn't like it stood out like a sore thumb compared to everybody else who had good moments because they were actually, I felt, better actors. Now, could I do a better job than Anthony? Absolutely not. He is far and away better an actor than I ever will be, and he's in better shape. Plus, he got laid on this episode. Good for him. That was my bread. But I have little nitpicks, small things, nothing major that I really disliked. But if I had to pick something, nobody likes Mayweather. I'm sorry. He's the worst of all the Enterprise crew. And it's like, I could have done with less of him or maybe better directed.
But what about your worst, Frank? Like, I know you told us about your best.
That was my best. Exactly.
Classic bit.
Yes.
And the thing is, he's like a specialty tool. Don't take it that way, because if you use him the right way, he can be effective, and you can enjoy what you're watching. But they use it's like using a wrench to bang on a nail or something. Yeah, you might get the job done, but it's going to look ugly when it's done. So they need. A lot of that is writing and direction. You got to put them in the right spots when you're going to use them.
I like to think you've got a tool bag of like crew members, and you just open it up like, there's nothing but Mayweather's in here. Who's nicked all the good archers?
1 star Mayweather, 1 star Mayweather, 1 star Mayweather. And it was because you can tell in the writing, they're like, all right, we have to have a spy on the Enterprise that sabotages, and we have to have somebody from Starfleet Intelligence who's undercover that tells us this information. We have to have exposition. We have to have somebody there. Who will it be? Well, this person's busy. This person's busy. This person's busy. It's Mayweather. And, I guess, like, again, had this been, and you said it, had this been a full season long thing, or at least a 10 episode long plot line where we're slowly building the things, and we had met Gannett a long time, and we had known of their past relationship, and we had some sort of investment, and we're like, oh, hey, his girlfriend's back. Maybe they'll get together. Maybe he'll leave and settle down, instead of compacting all of that into 15 sentences where I didn't know she existed beforehand, and now they've got this crazy backstory, and I didn't care a week ago, and I'm not going to care a week from now, so I probably won't care now. So yeah, that was my best. The best all around, I'll just generalize it, minus Mayweather, is the actual acting of our core bridge crew. Everybody else, and you can pick specific people for yours, everybody else, I'll just say the actual acting when somebody was focused on, they were going all out. They knew, if this is the end, I want this to be remembered by some nerds on the internet in 20 years that watch this episode and go, wow, I didn't know Connor Trinneer could act, and yet he can.
Awesome. I'm gonna go. I think my best moment is it's gonna be sort of, how do I explain this? The feeling. Well, okay, I'll tell you what it is. It's literally just T'Pol and Tucker. It is Jolien Blalock and Connor Trinneer's interactions with each other. That's kind of my best moment, and this is something that has been heavily worked on throughout the previous seasons, especially seasons 3 and 4. And to get to this point where they're openly talking about having children, essentially, and being in this position where it's not even a will they, won't they situation. They are essentially an item at this point with no hesitation or anything. It is essentially written as such that they're very much in love, and it's just this is the build up to it. Is when they talk about children and the loss of everything, and a special commendation to Jolene's acting. It's so hard, and so few people can do Vulcans right, and Jolene is one of the best because she has that. You can feel her desperation. You can feel her anxiety. You can feel when she confronts Paxton as well in this episode as well. You know, she's got him, banged to rights, and she brings out the emotionality without being emotional. She brings out the regret and the sort of just the horrible, sad feelings about losing her daughter without showing emotion, but she is inside, and you just get that. You can feel it and it's such a shame we didn't get more Jolene as T'Pol in, Strange New Worlds. It's right for her to turn up now. She could be an old Vulcan, and they're not pulling on that trigger, but never mind. Anyway, so I, definitely Jolene and Trip Tucker as well. Sorry, go on.
I just wanted to gush about Jolene, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
To me, she's on the Mount Rushmore. If there were a 3-person Mount Rushmore, it's her, it's Nimoy, and it's Tim Russ for me, for Vulcans. And the thing is, she didn't start out that great. If you go watch early Enterprise, she is a lot more one note. And it's like, I don't know if someone talked to her, she just figured the character out on her own. When she modulates emotion, it's 1 degree at a time. 2 degrees, 3 degrees. A lot of guest stars, when they try to modulate Vulcan motions, they can only go 20 degrees at a time. They can only click the knob so far, and you're either over the top, or you're kind of wavering in the middle, or you're too stoic. And she can just find those little gray areas, unlike anyone else, really. So she is great in this.
She's brilliant, and I'll tack on to that. The very last scene before, you've never seen emotion out of a emotionless Vulcan before, like she did here. Like this stuff was just pure class. Before she grabbed his hand at the very end, when you're focused on her face, her left eye twitches as they're talking about Elizabeth. And it's just like the most small thing, but that's how she's conveying the emotion in that moment where she's saying something sad, is her eye is twitching. And just the one eye. You're like, and that could have been an accident.
When she grabs his hand, it's not smooth. Yeah. It just it flies over it's there, it juts over there to grab. Yeah.
No, it's great. My worst moment is absolutely, and I'm so sorry for saying this, but it is Peter Weller. It is. It's a waste of. Oh, I hope he's a good actor. I know he is a good actor, but the character wasn't written for him. I don't think. I think that was a kind of a mistake. I think there was. He had a lifeless energy to it that kind of didn't. I wasn't getting the fanaticism. I wasn't feeling like he believed the words he was saying. He didn't feel to me like a Nepo baby either. Didn't feel like my dad's mining rig, I'm here. He could wear the hell out of a sharp suit, which is also kind of a problem as well, because you work on a mining rig. You're up here.
Well, he's an administrator, that's the thing.
I know. And the whole sort of fanatic sort of Terror Prime movement, which basically consisted of, Paxton and 3 other guys, essentially, and 1 woman standing in the background. It felt half-baked. His kind of motivations were there in writing, but not in performance. So I'm putting Paxton down as my worst of that episode. And I really wasn't coming in here thinking of this. I have memories of going like, cool, Peter Weller's in this. He's good. Not the scene for him, I don't think.
We've talked about other ways he could play it. If they really leaned into the Nepo baby, made him like a Richie Rich, over-the-top, arrogant type, I think he could probably pull that off. I don't know if that would be right for the episode, but in terms of him nailing a character, that might be more in his wheelhouse.
The one change I would have done is had him in a wheelchair. That way he could do his mime and his physical acting from a wheelchair. And his backstory is he was paralyzed because of an accident caused by an alien.
Yeah.
So now he really hates aliens.
I mean, you kind of had the, and talking to sort of the cult leader stuff, when Tucker first sort of gets into the mine and he's approaching the guy making the big speech on his box stand, preaching to the masses about the alien scum of the earth and all this, that's fanatic culticism of people sort of spreading the word. But I can't, it doesn't gel between him and his subordinates, and I can't quite feel the link of his fanaticism. Doesn't feel like it's the same kind. It feels like it's a very moderate one, and that's just inspired other people.
I kind of have to disagree with that, because I feel like if you look at like Josiah and the way that they express like their hatred, it's purely just a case of like raw feeling. Like, have you ever met a Vulcan? Well, no. It's like
Yeah.
your Vulcan friend, like, T'Pol is the first one that they've ever met. But it's all just like, oh well, the Xindi attacked us. It's like, so therefore I hate all aliens. It's like aimless, misdirected, completely like shooting from the hip passion. Whereas I thought it was really an interesting pick that they made Paxton a history professor of history. Because he has that bearing about him. Like, having gone to university, he had a bit of an academic feel to his performance, where it's like, this is the kind of person I think someone would respond to if you have a lot of bundled up feelings of hatred toward a group that you can't express, and then suddenly there's a guy who is learned, who's intellectual, who's scorned by his group, but is, by your standards, a smart individual. Who can give thought and form and feeling to what you're trying to express. I think that makes total sense to me. That absolutely, like, that's as the formation for a hate group. I think that makes perfect sense.
Well, but then I think you circle back around to, like, how many instances do we see of the tree voting for the axe because its handle's made of wood? But they're not the same at all. So maybe he exudes that academic, but that's not who he's trying to appeal to. And in order to do that, he has to have a certain level of charisma, which I just don't see. So it is kind of a circular.
Yeah.
Yeah, not Peter Weller for this role. Anyway, that was my best and worst. Who wants to go next? You know what?
Stars.
There you go.
Yeah, I'll go. I think I'm actually going to zig rather than... I was worrying about, like, whether or not one of you guys is going to pick it. Because I was thinking, do I want to go for the end scene with Trip and T'Pol? Do I want to go for Archer's speech, which I think is very, very good? No. I actually have to go for a consistent bright spot of Enterprise, and I want to just go for John Billingsley in the bit in sickbay when he has to break the news that Elizabeth isn't going to make it. No, not that. Although he was good, like, comedic relief as well. Yeah, it's like, I didn't expect to come here and gain a family, and it's like, it's so sentimental, it's so saccharine, but the way that he sells it, the way that, like, Billingsley just like absolutely infuses it with that genuineness, and you feel his heartbreak just as acutely as you do to Paul and Trips. It kills him inside. You could tell that he feels personally responsible. And it's only like a 20-30 second bit with Archer, ostensibly in the background of the suffering of the parents, and it's just like, he just kills that scene. It's incredible. And yeah, he's really, really good in the comedic bits with Reed and just, doing his General Flock stuff.
Bag.
But yeah, no, the barf bag was genuinely hilarious. But it's like, that's kind of the epitome of Phlox, isn't it? He's a comedic character who absolutely slays it in dramatic moments when you give him the chance, and he hit home run on this one, so he's my best here.
I mean, we're 40 minutes from the end of the series. If this isn't earned now, when will it be?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, that's absolutely true. My worst would probably have to be just like Gannett, and everything about her is just very... I don't know what they're going for there. I feel like it might have been easier to sell if it had been Hoshi and a similarly attractive dude. Because she at least has like a history of, like, like when she was on Riser, she got like a fair bit of success with other people who were into linguistics. She was the only one who had a decent holiday. But it's
Good on her.
the fact
Good
that
for
they
her.
went from Hoshi and a dude to Mayweather and this woman who she really reminds me of Power Rangers at the time, and not in a good way. Because I watched a lot of Power Rangers Time Force, and it's like that acting is good for Power Rangers standards, but it's not great by Star Trek standards. And that's what I was getting from Gannett's energy. It just was not doing it for
Let's
me.
put this in perspective. She was having to do the acting for two people for most of the scenes.
Well, yeah. I feel like maybe there could have been something if she had been paired with someone who wasn't Anthony Montgomery. But like can I really criticize her for not having chemistry with him when, like, there's nothing to have chemistry with? It's like, the guy's a nerd. He's a chemical non-reactant. Like, what am I meant to do with that? But I also just don't buy her as, like, a credible Starfleet intelligence agent. Like, that's that Memory Alpha Pole of, they weren't sure if she was an SI agent until the end. I feel like maybe it kind of would have been better if she had actually been a Terra Prime agent all along, because at least then, like, the artifice would have been a bit more like of a proper lead into it. But instead, it just kind of goes nowhere. She doesn't really accomplish anything. Everything that all the information we get from Section 31, Starfleet Intelligence didn't do shit. Come on, guys.
It wasn't until she slept with Montgomery that was always slept with Mayweather that changed her mind. She saw the light.
And I'm not gonna say. I mean, I agree. She was a crappy character to go with, but obviously in the best moment for me, for good old Mayweather. But I think she was just lazily written, even down to the name, because she's a reporter by the name of Gannett in the United States, the largest media conglomeration that owns all the reporting and TV stations and newspapers is Gannett.
Oh, brilliant!
So it's I didn't even know that. That's hilarious.
No, I didn't know that.
The parent company of USA Today and all these TV stations and all this stuff, Gannett Broadcasting.
Fantastic.
Incredible. Auto.
This is a watershed moment in Trek history. Idle and I actually had the exact same best worst.
Whoa.
So I'm going to try to work around that. For my worst, I'm going to go Mayweather. I'm reading Gannett's Memory Alpha, and it says
That's what happens when you go last.
Yeah, Mayweather refused to accept Gannett's story and continued with the mission without informing any of the other officers about her claim. So he has suspicions, he has actionable information, and he just does nothing with it. And then at the end, after he's been betrayed, he completely accepts her back into the fold without question, without a cooling off period. It was just, acting aside, he was written badly, I think, and that was kind of a 1-2 punch for him. My best, since we talked about them at the end, I'm going to go actually. It happened more in the Demons episode. But Trip and T'Pol interacting about their trust for each other, I thought was very strong, because that is completely relatable to anyone who has ever been in a relationship. I want to trust you. In my head, in parts of my heart, I know I can trust you, but what if you're lying to me? What if something happened? Maybe you don't even remember. What if something happened? And they're right, and it's just got to gnaw at you and nag at you. And she even approaches him in the mind. She goes, I know you don't believe me. I want you to believe me. I want this to work. And it was just a great interaction and a part of the story that I wasn't really vibing with. Like when they showed up, I'm like, all right, there's some good eats. So credit to them in episode 1 especially.
Awesome. Which takes us very nicely, gentlemen.
I can show you my rating code.
Schiller rating 3.5. Associational rating norm -3. That's much too low a rating.
Just not accustomed to seeing an unsatisfactory rating on a member of my crew.
Okay, Stars, we need some Schiller ratings. Since you picked a 2-part episode with different titles, we will need 2 Schiller ratings, but I believe we're just going to...
Otherwise, it would upset your spreadsheets.
It would upset my spreadsheet. The fact we're only putting 1 score in as well is slightly upsetting me, but it won't affect the spreadsheet.
Oh, are we?
Well, I do...
Well,
I was going
it's
to
up
say,
to you,
we're not
up to
going to
you.
rate the 2 episodes separately, do you?
I don't
think
mind,
we should
if you
rate
want
them
to.
separately.
Damn it, Idol!
Do you know what? I will, up to your whims, but let's start.
Because I do have different rating codes.
Okay,
He picked the episode, so we're going to do whatever
fine.
he
Yeah,
says.
I will not I pretend I said nothing. Go for it, Stars. What's your Schiller ratings?
We'll tell you, we'll do it one by one. So, your Schiller rating, gentlemen, for Demons. I would like to know how many Commander Tuckers out of 10 you would like to give this episode.
That's the cheapest out you've ever taken, I gotta say, Stars.
Okay, I did also have awful city backdrops out of 10 and
good.
underacted Mayweather reaction shots out of 10, but
that could apply to the entire series. Like,
yeah, that was
How
my
many
problem
Rs?
with it.
yeah, how many hours?
I went with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 5, but I think maybe 7
hang on.
is
No,
more
I'll stick
appropriate.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Come on, Tuckers. Yeah, might as well start. Go, Stars.
Yeah, so for Demons, I think it is quite a bit worse than Terra Prime. I think there's enough in there, and I think it ends strongly enough that I think it guarantees itself, like, it's a decent layup. All the pieces are on the board. You've got it's a good cliffhanger and a good threat. And it's also like something I find that is something I appreciate more and more as I get older is when episodes and stories set up a stake that is just about dire enough that it would be really bad, but not dire enough that you can't see it happening. Like, if Starfleet Command actually got wiped off the map at this point in history, it would not be the end of the world. It's a few buildings, it's a few people. Like, it would not be the end of the world. So you're like, okay, maybe. But you know, I just kind of appreciate that. I also really appreciate the stuff with Trip and T'Pol. Calling back to the psychic bond is really, really good. I appreciated like the showing of the diplomacy. I kind of wish that Samuels had gotten a bit more development. I feel like we could have done a lot more with like the idea of developing the idea that you can have these ideas when you're younger, but if you grow out of them and grow as a person, that can be a really good learning experience. Instead, that's basically left on the table. Like, oh, we know you're Terra Prime, and then it's kind of just dropped. And I feel like a better use of Samuels, who is a much better guest actor than either Gannett or fucking Anthony Montgomery, would have been a much better time and a way more prescient to the wider theme about racial hatred, really. So I would probably have to give Demons... I'd give it a 6.5 Commander Tuckers out of 10. It's a decent layup, but Terra Prime will be getting a significantly higher score from me.
Okay.
So I agree with you about Samuels, but let me ask, do you think there's any value in them leaving that vague so that he could be a suspicious threat in the second half when we try to figure out who could have leaked the intel?
Honestly, he
because
was
he
kind
does
of
have
presenting
sympathies
as it.
with...
Like that whole sequence with him and Hoshi, and they're looking for the mole. You know, you kind of, if you don't know, then you kind of would go like, "Is Samuels like, is he part of Terra Prime, or is he still with them?"
Well, the camera focuses on him for a second, so it's like, and then it's an unnamed ensign that you've never seen and have no emotional attachment to.
Yeah.
Should
have been Kelby.
Okay. I'm going to interrupt. I think Demons I'm not as enamored with. You're right. It lingers on Mayweather and Gannett for too long. The Tucker and T'Pol stuff, I was actually expecting them a little bit more of that in this episode, considering this sort of emotional impact. So I would have liked to spend more time with them having a conversation. We get some, and for me, it's not enough. I need more. Feed me my ship, please.
Give me more on Demons.
Yes,
so that was my Picard and Darmok.
Yeah, Archer's fairly resigned in this episode. But I do like his big enthusiastic clap louder at the start. Is like, we're here. Yeah. Don't give a fuck. I'm not here. For my own benefit, guys. Just suck it up and take it in. But yeah, it's a slower episode than I remember, and the kind of the threat of Terra Prime doesn't feel like a threat. And then suddenly they land on the planet and like, we have laser beams pointed at Earth, and it's like, okay, fine. I wasn't quite as on board with that. But you know, there was something there. But I'm going to give this 5 Commander Tuckers out of 10. It sat perfectly in the middle. Wasn't offensively bad. Wasn't incredibly good. It kind of does just sit there in a very kind of Enterprise way that Enterprise episodes sometimes do. They exist. Auto.
I'm going to be using the whole scale here. Sorry, this is 2.7 Commander Tuckers out of 10.
Really?
This was rough. The acting and the sets were all so beige outside of a few moments. Just the believability of this giant mining station that turns into a frickin' laser beam that goes to warp it stretched it for me. Paxton just enveloping everything in his monotone was a little bit too much. The two big moments to jump out, like I said, were T'Pol and Tucker interacting, which is great, but then also Archer blackmailing Samuels. He's like, by the way, I know you used to be a Nazi, and if you don't tell me what I want to know, I'm going to out you. I'm like, thank you, finally. Like, Archer, good job. So it was... You could also, they bring in the big, huge plot point that, oh yeah, you have a daughter. They don't even touch it until episode 2. They don't sprinkle it in. Instead, they're sprinkling in Mayweather more and more, and it's just, I didn't love it. So but 2.7 for me.
Frank.
I agree with my esteemed colleague Automaton 2000 because as a Star Trek episode, it's not great. As an Enterprise episode, I agree with our esteemed host, Captain Idol. It's middle of the road, but as the penultimate-ish kind of episode, really, like, this is a great part 1 to an 8-part arc. This is not a great part 1 to a 2-part arc. And with some little problems here and there that we've all kind of talked about. So I do have to say that I enjoyed seeing it again, but there's a reason I haven't seen it in 10 years. So out of 10, I can only in good faith of the heart give this 4.5 Commander Tucker.
Your mic cut out, by the way.
Yeah, your mic couldn't handle the amount of words.
Is he still going?
He's gonna pass out.
Okay. Okay. So at the end of that, for that episode, that is a 4.7 average between the four of us, which is a little bit worse than all our yesterdays. It's actually worse than Breaking the Ice, which we said was the most beige episode of Enterprise ever. Slightly better than Wedding Bell Blues and Home Soil, weirdly enough. How about we move on to Terra Prime?
Ugly bags of mostly water.
Which we didn't like. I remember us liking that. Maybe that was just me. Maybe I need to come back and watch it again.
All right. Guys, how many Vulcan French tips out of 10 would you like to give Terra Prime?
It's called Fashion, sweetie. Look it up.
Okay, let's go reverse orders. Frank, let's start with you. We'll snake it. Let's go.
I was great on this episode until that final shot of the French tips. That was that. I no longer believe it's a true story. That this entire time we're talking about how Vulcans or these other aliens are the dearth of humanity, and then to show just how human they are, here they are. They go to the same nail salon you do. They also get French tips and gels.
Listen, they never said they didn't have style. Have you seen their robes? Pure fashion.
It's true. Those bowl cuts, nothing matches.
But her hair was better in this half of the
A
season.
little bit messy. A little bit messy hair.
I mean, she just lost her daughter.
I mean, at the start, even at the start, it was, you know.
Oh, okay.
You mean after she'd been imprisoned and attacked by anti-Vulcan racists?
And she was shot at least once.
8.5.
That being
Just use
said,
that as a fucking, like, full stop to tell me to shut the fuck up. Sorry, Frank, please ignore these rude ignoramuses. Carry on.
but I love these men like my brothers. So that being said, I am going 8.5 because I really do love the acting of everybody in the episode, with the exception of Peter Weller, because I thought he should not have lived and gone to jail or really become necessarily a martyr. But I do believe Archer should have died right there. I believe Archer should have given his speech earlier instead of standing on the grand staircase. I believe Archer should have sacrificed himself for the good of not humanity, but all alien races. And that is the driving force that brings everybody together. And then Tucker and T'Pol go and stand at the table and show, hey, we're a human and we're an alien, but we had a kid together that nobody knew about till just now. But if we can make it work, anybody can make it work. And then everybody stands and applauds. And then that's how you end your series. And nothing else happens after that. But then that creates a lot of problems, so we should probably have a better ending. And I bet we will, and I bet we will review it soon. But until then, we're just going to pretend that this is the end of Enterprise, and I cannot, in good faith, give it anything lower. Yeah, actually, I'm going to go 7.5. I revised that. I've talked myself out of it because Mayweather didn't get laid in this episode. 7.5. Finally,
you don't know what happened on that shuttle ride home.
That's what I assumed happened. Yeah. No, he absolutely, like, there's a reason that, like, oh man, look, you got time for another shot. It's like, no, they absolutely fucked on the way home.
Mm-hmm.
That is very true. 8 manicured French tips.
So what I'm getting from you, Frank, is that all that an episode needs to get like a 10 out of 10 is to just have like a Mayweather bang session, yeah?
In the early 2000s, I was the target demographic because I was in my mid-20s, and this show was featuring everything on the UPN and CW that was great, which was teenage sex drama. That's what we wanted. That's what they were trying to squeeze in. They were like, hey, we need more of Dawson's Creek in here, so put these two together and have a sex scene. It's like, yes, finally, thank you. That's all I want out of Star Trek is sex scenes. I've wanted to see Patrick Stewart naked for so many seasons, and I got it once, and he was in bed with Q, and that was almost okay.
Anyway, Auto.
Don't put me after Frank anymore. How am I supposed to follow this stuff?
I'm reverse snaking. That's the rules. I didn't make him.
So I have a lot of the same issues as episode 1. There's a lot of Paxton. He did have a few moments where as he's speaking about certain things, I'm like, all right, I can see little bits of the charisma. I can see, is he going to start growing into things and becoming bigger? And he didn't quite do that. Archer at the end, you have the gun. Go over and stun him. Instead, you let him hide behind a little shelf. Then you stand in front of the giant cracked window, which he was just so dumb. Mayweather was exceptionally dumb. But here's the thing. If I could draw an analogy, it's like coming home to a meal that your children made. And maybe they burn the chicken nuggets, but you can eat them. That's fine. You love them. Maybe they put hot sauce on the salad. It doesn't go together, but they're a kid. They don't know any better. And then they pull out this fine chocolate souffle that's like 3 Michelin star perfection. You're like, where the fuck did you learn to make this souffle? The end of this episode with Phlox, with them talking about the child, with the speech, it's like, holy shit, where was this in the preceding hour and a half? Like, wow. So, I want to give it enough credit. I don't want to rate it below average because if someone looks up our scores, they're like, oh, I guess I shouldn't watch it because I thought it was weird. No, people need to watch this. But I didn't like the majority of the episodes. I'm going to go with 6 Vulcan French tips out of 10. I think every Star Trek fan should at least watch this episode to get the end of it, to get the context. It's really impactful, and I can see why you drafted. I can see why you wanted it to be the ending. I think a lot of fans would prefer that, so yeah, I'll go 6.
I have a feeling that somewhere in the future there will be a YouTube short of the ending of this episode on a channel called Trek Time.
On a side note, I need to kick my ass because I'm actually nearly out of my scheduled YouTube short episode, so I actually need to go. I literally scheduled 2 months and I haven't done material. I need to do that. Anyway, I'll go next. So yeah, I'm going to echo what Auto says. Like that ending like rides very high of the sort of the opinion of this episode, and that's kind of what your major. When everyone says like Demas and Terra Prime, you think, oh shit, yeah, Trip and T'Pol's baby, and that whole emotional moment, and the sort of you can't deny that Star Trek's been on the sort of nose for cultural sensitive issues like racism, xenophobia, or in this case, rampant worship, which has never been more applicable to the times than it is now. It is a very sort of episode. So Star Trek's still hitting those social issues, but yeah, it's a bit of a slog. We do get a needless Archer fight scene. We get sort of the boys in the tactical gear. We're gonna have a little shootout. Yeah, let's do it. This is cool. Even Phlox in his tactical gear, carrying in the corner, going like, "Who do I hyperspray? Let's go."
That was good though.
Yeah, it was a nice VFX shot with the ice, the comet as they're sailing through it. That was great. But we didn't really need the mole plot. That wasn't needed, which kind of cuts out Gannett's involvement, which again was also equally as dumb. I will probably on future viewings just watch Trip and T'Pol. This could have just been a them episode with Paxton as well. If you want to sort of get him involved still and cut out the mole plot, cut out the Starfleet intelligence, even the Section 31 Harris stuff isn't really there. They're just sort of riding on that little high that Luther Sloan sort of like paraded in and hopefully should have died with, but sadly didn't. So I'm going to echo Auto's score, and I'm going to go with, because it is better than Demons, but I'm going to let T'Pol and Trip sort of emotionally carry me through to a 6 Vulcan French tips on one hand out of 10.
six-fingered hand.
Yeah, use alien scum, you know. Stars.
Jesus. Yeah, so this was my draft pick. I definitely think that Demons is absolutely the weaker part of it. I think that, like, this is so prescient that, like, I didn't even quite connect just how on the nose it would feel watching it in 2026. It's got a really harsh emotional punch to it. Pretty much everyone, with the exception of Anthony Montgomery, is actually giving like a A++ acting game here.
Sorry, step on. Just it's when T'Pol says Elizabeth that you just kind of go, oh no.
Yeah, no, like that's like a season and a half's worth of build up just for that moment of why that's important and why that matters.
So I did the thing that I hate when people do to me, where we're at the emotional scene and I made a joke. Sorry, I said, Trips, it looked like you've been stung by 100 bees, but it was true. He was really fucking crying. His eyes are just,
he looked
big as
emotionally
saucers.
destroyed. Yeah,
it was fantastic. Yeah.
And I kind of liked, like you mentioned, you weren't a massive fan of like him having like the support for his arm. I don't know. I felt like kind of helped make him seem more vulnerable and more destroyed.
It's a tiniest little thing.
Yeah. And it's just like the way that T'Pol grabs his hand, the way that Phlox emotes, the speech. There's so much. It's kind of like more than the sum of its parts, really. I have really, really strong warm feelings about it, even though I know for a fact that it's kind of it doesn't hold together as well as it should, but I just really appreciate it for saying what it needed to say and doing it with its whole chest. I can't really be objective about it, so I'm gonna go with. I'm trying to not to
do it.
Go with your heart. Just don't even think about it. Just blurt out a number.
9.2 Vulcan French tips out of 10 for me.
Not that number. That's too much.
I can't give it a 10 because I have to acknowledge there are faults, but I think it really is more than some of its parts. When I think of this episode, I cannot help but think of it really fondly and appreciate it for what it's trying to do and what it's trying to say. And to me, a Star Trek episode with something to actually say that is more relevant now than it was when it released. That's something to be treasured and kind of like appreciated. So I can't be objective about it. It really means a lot to me. That's why I drafted it.
Fantastic. The end of that's now averaged at a.
Now that's a Star Trek.
That is a Star Trek. I thought that was me saying that. I was like, what's going wrong with my voice? 7.3. Out of 10 is about the same as Memento Mori. Not as good as Hyde & Q. We rated Hyde & Q slightly better than this by 0.1 of a point. Better than Subspace Rhapsody, better than the Vulcan Hello. So that's about where it sits on the ranking charts. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining me, or joining us all on this epic journey. Thank you, Stars, for picking this one. It was really interesting, actually, going back and watching this episode after so long. But we will be back on your view screens if you care to join us, if you subscribe to our YouTube channel and all of that jazz, and follow our shorts, and come join us on Discord. We're a happy, fun bunch. Go on.
Sorry, can I just do a quick thought experiment since chat suggested it? If this was a three-parter replacing These Are the Voyages, where would you kind of go at the can you go up from here with that big emotional payoff?
I think you would probably want to like you would make this the end still, but you'd want a middle part.
Something in the middle.
You would want to build up the actual threat on Earth and actually show the protests outside, like the embassies, build up a real sense of like that rising tide. Cut out the shit with like the mole, and just like really build on Samuels and that background. Trade more on that. I feel like that would have been a way stronger three-parter, and then that would have been a kind of a perfect way to end it. Is like you end on that speech, it goes into Archer giving like the final narration, like it does in These Are the Voyages, and that's how you end it. Like I feel like that'd be kind of a perfect way to do it, because you ended with this is how the coalition of planets is formed. You'll wink at Spock, but it's not too oblique. And you get to see, yes, this world that we've inhabited and for the past 4 years is not perfect, but it is getting there. Guess what? It's been a long road, but we got from there to here.
I would do almost the exact same thing. But at the end, the speech that he's giving in the room, of course, now earlier I said he should die. Yes, but this is the second version where he doesn't die. I would have him giving the speech, but then do a cool little camera cut where it focuses in real tight on his face, and then it zooms out, and he's talking to a mirror, and then it says 6 weeks later, because at the very beginning of the episode, he says, "Hey, I've got 6 weeks to do this," because they're talking about having the meeting. 6 weeks later, he's practicing the speech, and he's got the crew with him, and they're like, "Hey, you've got this. You're ready to go." And he walks out, and you see the actual last scene of These Are the Voyages, where he walks out and he starts to give it to the thunderous applause, and then boom, there's your founding. And no Will Riker anywhere. Yes, I know that's my draft pick.
You were totally there for that draft pick. You were really you were full throated.
I was.
These Are the Voyages.
And I will make it worth everyone's while, but right now, no.
Okay, well, keep an eye on all of that, and we will be back. Keep an eye, because sorry, I got slightly distracted there. We will be having some news about our upcoming charity show, which is going to be coming sort of early May-ish. So we're going to have some charities to pick, some other things, as well as I'm hoping to get Star Trek SmackDown running. I've been running some tests with some people on how to do some drafting. Hopefully that's going to be some stupid dumb entertainment for people's faces at some point soon. But before we do all that, I'm going to say live long and prosper, and ta-ra!